There's a lot of darkness in this world. That's a lowercase d dark, mind ya. There's also the capital D kind, but that's another kind of thing altogether. Now, some people tell you that it's the big darkness that you gotta watch out for, and in some ways, they'd be right. Could have agreed with them on that a long time before a good friend of mine went and showed me just how far down the crazy rabbit hole goes. Demons, vampires, all of that monster madness bullshit. And it turns out, it ain't quite as much malarkey as your rational mind like you to believe. That enormous darkness, well, that's biblical. End of the world type stuff. But the thing about that, it's obvious, you see? That kind of thing, any number of people stand up to fight it. It's basic human survival. So why there's so many damn zombie uprising fantasies out there? Everybody wants to grab their shotgun and go get them some sweet, hot action. Goddamn masturbatory is what it is. And that's why there ain't no way in hell the world will ever end that way. We'd know that if we'd just pay attention. Society and culture's got any number of references to the little darkness being the one to get ya. The world won't end in a bang, but a whimper. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. And my personal favorite, the devil's in the details. This is a story about those details and that devil. If you're looking for some kind of action movie blockbuster finish, I'd ask you to get off now, because there won't be any of that. Plenty of other places you could go for all your vicarious thrills and heroics you could ever want. I'd encourage you to do so. All you're going to do is just be making my point for me. Big evil's exciting and stimulates the imagination, but people can't be bothered with the little one. So why? It's so damn insidious. Anybody still here? Then, let's set the stage. A few years back, I was in a pretty bad way. My only boy, Billy, had been killed on his way home from a basketball practice by a junkie looking to make a quick score. I live outside of Philly, and such things still aren't unheard of, yet they're still a lot less common nowadays, thank God. Anyways, my boy was dead, and his mom and I ended up splitting up soon after, due to distress. I managed to get myself fired from my job, and most of my days were spent either crawling out of the bottom of the bottle or searching around, seeing if I could get a line on his killer. Most of the time, both. Well, one day, I found the bastard. Punk was crashed at a flophouse, high out of his mind, sprawled on a mattress stained with dirt and God knows what else. I walked up to my boy's killer and considered him. He was young, only a few years older than Billy probably. Jaw covered by a little scraggly yellow beard. He was wearing his stupid knit cap, a whole bunch of striped colors. It's how I knew for sure I had the right guy. That cap was the only detail the one witness of my boy's murder could remember. I grabbed the filthy pillow lying next to him and set it atop his glazed face before pulling out my .45 to finish the deed. I sat there for what felt like forever but was probably only a minute or two. The barrel of my gun making a depression in the pillow where I was pushing it down against his forehead. It's not like we were the only people in the room. All around me were a bunch of other junkies crashed in various stages of fucked up. But at the same time, it was just him and me and the gun. My other hand was shaking from fear and rage and adrenaline, and there was this little kernel of blackness somewhere inside my chest just screaming at me to pull the trigger. And somehow, some way, I didn't. I stumbled out of that crack house feeling like a balloon that had all of its air let out, just totally drained. It ain't that I never killed before. Got plenty of that and a handful of tours to Iraq. But this would have been the first time I committed murder. And brother, if you don't think there's a difference, then you need to spend some more time thinking on it. So, by the grace of God or just dumb luck, I managed to save my soul from the devil for another day. The experience managed to scare me straight. The thought, what I'd almost done and what my life had nearly turned into, enough to make me want to puke. I vowed then and there I was going to make a change. Now, I want you to fast forward about 12 months. Ever so gradually, I'd managed to pull my life out of the gutter. I'd cut back significantly on the drinking. I thought about going to meetings in the basement of the local church, but ultimately decided against it. I figured I had it under control and really didn't feel like sharing my story just yet. Things kept getting better, and after a few months, I even got a job as a security guard for this hoity-toity high school down the main line. About that time's when Johnny gave me a call. I was good friends with a guy, Jack, or at least had been back in the day. We'd broken our teeth in the army together, gone through basic and a first deployment in the same unit, thick as thieves. We'd been out of touch for the better part of a decade, but more than just because our lives had grown apart than there had been any kind of falling out. We got assigned to different stations. Jack got out. I stayed in. You know, life happens. You feel me? Johnny was Jack's older brother. I'd met him a few times, enough that if I ran into him, I'd be sure to wave him down. But what were the odds of that? Well, they were pretty good as it turned out. Johnny was in Philly for some kind of conference. Jack knew I lived in the area and told his brother to check up on me on account of Billy. Johnny called and told me we should go grab a drink. I was unenthusiastic, seeing I tended to do my drinking alone, as I didn't need anyone egging me on, but what was I going to do? I didn't feel like insulting my friend's brother, even if we hadn't exactly talked for a few years. I told him I had a second shift, so it might be a little late, but he said no problem. He'd go ahead and get started without me. So, there I was. I finally rolled up to the hotel in my old beater at about 12:30. And Johnny was sitting in the lobby, and he stood up, and he saw me walk through the door. "Gabe, how you been, man?" "Passing well, Johnny. How's your brother?" Good. Say." He glanced over at a well-dressed fella sitting next to him. "Let me introduce you to Bernard." Bernard was the living Webster definition of Eurotrash. Fake tan, stupid short-ass double beard, tailored German suit. Spoke 3 languages and could be a pretentious dick in all of them. You know the type. It turns out Johnny had just met Bernard earlier in the evening. The guy was Polish, but working for a Swiss branch of Johnny's company. This conference was his first time to America, and he was looking to get fucked, or at the very least, fucked up. Johnny'd asked if I'd mind if Bernard come along for the ride, and grudgingly, I said no problem. Now, it was midday on a Wednesday or Thursday, I suppose. So we had to drive around a bit before we found somewhere we could get a beer. The name of the establishment we ended up was the Fireside. Though, why I couldn't tell you, because there wasn't anything like a fireplace inside. It was a total dive. I've been in plenty like it in my army days. And just walking in, I could tell we should probably think about heading back out the way we came. But Johnny was insistent, and he wouldn't be able to find a better place, and Bernard figured it'd give him the real American experience he was hoping for. So, that was settled. Johnny and Bernard were both pretty well on their way to a pretty solid headache the next morning from their pregame at the hotel. They picked up right where they left off, with Johnny asking the Polacks pretending to be a bartender what kind of microbrews they had. She gave him this look that'd curdle milk. The only other folks in the bar were a handful of locals shooting pool on the other side of the room that were already eyeing us up. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck start to stand up. A feeling I was all too familiar with from the time in Satyr City. Johnny, I think we need to think about going. Aw, come on, Gabe. One drink. Fine. I nod at the barkeep. 3 buds. She gave me something like a smile on a barracuda before setting 3 red and white cans in front of us, and so we settled in. Johnny and Bernard tried to explain to me exactly what it was their company employed them to do. Johnny told me how Tiffany was pregnant with their second, and he was sure this one to be a boy. I sat there with my beer in front of me, occasionally taking a swallow as I tried to listen. But really, my focus was still held by the 4 pool players shooting looks at us from across the room. I did some mental math, nodding along with the conversation. I figured I could take 2 of them, sure, and Johnny could maybe handle 1, but Bernard, well, I don't think he couldn't punch his way out of a paper bag. I wasn't liking the odds. I started to interrupt Bernard, who was telling us all about his daily workout routine, when one of the locals finally decided to make his way over. You foreign? He looked at Bernard, the smell of booze giving away the fact that he was well into it. From experience, I could tell he was looking for a fight. Bernard here is from Switzerland, Johnny said. Actually, Bernard slurred, I'm from Poland. Well, shit. Our new friend grinned maliciously. My wife's half Polish. Hey, asshole. He turned to Johnny. Why you gotta say he's Swiss if he's a Polak? You can't go around disrespecting people like that. The booze slowed Johnny's normally quick wit. I mean, he works in Switzerland. Nah, it's alright. But Tough was smiling with his teeth. I gotcha. Hey Bernard, was it? You wanna come out back with me and have a cigarette? Bernard was on his slightly swaying feet immediately. "Bernard, buddy," I looked at him. "I think we need to get going. You guys have the conference in the morning." He rolled his eyes. "Fuck the conference. I'm going for a smoke." The local patted my shoulder. "Yeah, friend, we're just going for a smoke. We won't be a minute." Before I could say anything further, they were already out the back door. Johnny was back in his drink, already forgetting the whole thing. "Johnny," I asked him, "how invested in your new buddy are you?" And he shot me a quizzical look. "'Cause I'm pretty sure he's about to get his ass kicked out back, and I'm of a mind we should just walk back out on him before they decide to take it out on us too." And Johnny, well, he just laughed at me. "Gabe, really? These guys are harmless." "No, they really ain't, Johnny. I'm gonna tell you again, we need to leave. Now grab your stuff and let's get out of here. I'm just pulling my life together, and last thing I need is to be getting into bar fights. Let's go find a payphone and call the cops to make sure Bernard walks out of here okay. We could do it anonymous, so if I'm wrong, even if I'm not, there won't be any harm done." Johnny got mad then, a drunken kind of anger. "Fuck off, man. Look, if you want to leave, that's fine. We can make our way back to the hotel. I was just doing Jack a favor looking in on you anyway." Now, Johnny, come on." "No, damn it. I need this. Another kid on the way? You know the last time I got to go out? Seriously, fuck off." I opened my mouth to say something else, but then thought better of it. Words wouldn't change anything. I had work the next day, and damn it, I wasn't gonna screw up my teetering hold on a somewhat normal kind of life for a thankless drunk. An ass-kicked served Johnny right. I stood up, tossed some bills on the bar, and walked out without a look back, even though I still had a bad feeling I couldn't quite shake. "You remember earlier? I said I'd save my soul for another day when I didn't sanction Billy's killer. Little did I know this would be the day. You see, I didn't end up calling the cops after I left. I thought about it, sure, but then decided that, nah, there's two of Johnny and Bernard. One of them will be in enough peace to help the other out after their thumpings. And like I said, it'd serve 'em right. Well, came to find out the next day that I'd been dead on about the ass kicking. Didn't stop with the beating though. The papers said his was a beer bottle across the head that finally killed Johnny. But he'd also been stabbed a dozen times. So, who knows? I went into a bit of a desperation for a while after. I fell off the wagon for a bit. Almost lost my security job, though somehow I didn't. I skipped the funeral. Didn't want to face Jack. He never called me. Don't know if he ever found out I was there. So, what's my point? We tend to think of the devil as some red-faced, horned motherfucker. And after all I've seen, I'll admit the possibility that something like that maybe even exists. But that's the capital D, darkness. The one anybody'd stand up to fight against. In terms of strict definition, Satan is just an adversary, something you struggle against. And what if, instead of down in the land of hellfire and brimstone, the devil lives inside every single one of us? What if he's just a little voice telling you to do things that maybe even make sense, but that you know in your gut you're just plain wrong? How would we know to fight? How would we know we haven't already lost?